Joe Volpe, publisher of the Corriere Canadese, North America's only Italian language daily, on behalf of Go Live TV and Corcan Media Group, here once again with Richard Borax, noted immigration lawyer, to talk about law and reality, especially as it relates to immigration. It's a theme that's hitting all the pages in Europe, all the front pages of all the media. It's the lead story throughout all of Europe. It's the lead story in the United States, even though President Trump is trying hard to displace it with the issues of impeachment.
Well, let's not go down that path.
But here in Canada, again, it is the number one topic. We have now former Conservative Party candidate for the leadership walking out of the party on primarily issues related to immigration. The Conservative Party came up with an immigration plan or a policy of sorts.
So they call it.
So they call it. And the Liberal Party, the government, coming up with, they're not going to like me for this, with a hodgepodge of issues to demonstrate that they're actually doing something when nothing is happening. So why don't we talk, Richard, about where we left off the other day, and that was the economics, the business of immigration. That there's only one reason why you bring people in, just one, and that is we need them. We need them. Now we as Canada and Canadians need people from other countries, in part because we aren't producing our own, and in part, perhaps the better part, is because we think that a growth model needs more people, and we're not producing them.
You know, Joe, we've been throwing the number around the last couple of shows, about 177,000 economic immigrants come here. What the reason, and today in today's Corriere Canada has a plug, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
You called it immigration chaos in Italy and in Canada.
Well, that's true.
Well, it is true, but
but in Italy, just for the people who might not be aware, in Italy you've got boatloads, literally boatloads of people coming from North Africa in the main, coming onto Italian shores, testing the capacity of the peninsula and the integrative services to absorb them. Now, how many are there? 450,000 in the last 36 months.
Italy is under attack from the outside. Canada immigration is under attack from Ottawa.
Now that's a
well, I'm so look at the reality. The chaos is there because employers, because people are supposed to come in to fill an economic need.
That's why you have 177,500 indicated for this coming year, this year.
Well, let's focus on Ontario here.
Okay, so that's
in Ontario. How many?
70,800 for all of Ontario.
70,000. And how many illegals, undocumented to be polite, do we have here in Ontario?
Well, I don't know. The estimates that I've garnered from government sources, federal, provincial, municipal, are that the number's somewhere around 400,000 to 500,000.
So we have
minimum.
We have a 7-year inventory, so to speak, of economically viable immigrants sitting without documents in this province.
Without status, as it's referred to.
Let us talk today about the chaos created to business in Ontario, to the employers and the workers and the unions and the taxman.
So the chaos would only exist if Ralph Goodale, who's the minister of CBSA, were to issue an edict tomorrow saying, get rid of all of those people.
Well, there's different levels of chaos. Right now we have economic chaos. We're not collecting taxes from these people. Their kids are going to school costing $1.23 billion a year. Employers are juggling all over the place, worrying if they're going to be arrested by Ralph Goodale's people, or at least fined, or having construction
And we've mentioned it before. It's 2 years plus $50,000
That's
conviction.
Right. Right now, we have the threat of deportation, the threat of criminal action, the threat of employer blacklists. Ralph Goodale is holding this threat over Ontario's economy.
Not holding it. If he does his job, that will be the case. But
the
law says that he must.
But he won't. And he doesn't, because he knows that the immigration game is it's cooked against the employers and the economy here in Ontario. 20% to Quebec, 40% to the rest, and 40% to Ontario. That sounds like a generous number, but the reality is, if you're an employer in Edmonton, in Calgary, in Halifax, you will get the worker to fill the job from someplace. If you're in Ontario, you're not going to get that worker, especially if you're in the trades. Only 4%. Ottawa, the geniuses, only 4% of the economic immigrants coming into Ontario are from the trades. Bingo, what do we have?
Well, you got ghost workers. Somebody's doing a job, they don't appear.
The word ghost implies that Ralph doesn't know about them.
No.
It implies
it just
that
simply it's a
Ahmed
tactic.
doesn't know about them.
It's a tactic that the employers use. They just say, well, we don't have to ask the question.
But Ralph and Ahmed know they're here. These in the construction sector.
How do you know that they're here?
Oh, because
How
they're
do you know that they know?
on workman's compensation,
But
Joe.
that's
They're
under
in the
Ontario
system.
law. What do? They go and read the Ontario records?
So now Ottawa doesn't know what's happening under Ontario law.
Oh, so we
Anyways.
need 177.
Yeah.
We've indicated we need 177,500 economic migrants.
Yeah.
You take 40% of
No,
that
no,
number.
we haven't decided. Ottawa's decided.
Ottawa decided that that's what the economy needs. And of that number...
That's brilliant. Ottawa deciding. Joe, are we communists all of a sudden?
So
we have the government telling the business what the business needs.
So 70,800 of them would go to Ontario, would come to Ontario. Now, the economy of Ontario has grown by more
Joe,
than...
do you know what this reminds me of? When I was a young guy, I worked in a communist country in Europe. And one day in the shoe
France?
stores... I worked there too. So one day, the shoe stores would have shoes for the left foot. The next day, they would have shoes for the right foot. This reminds me of Canada immigration policy makers. Who are these clowns telling Ontario business how to run itself?
Well, I guess you put me in a position where I have to try to...
Oh, by the way, you were there, as I recall.
I wasn't selling shoes.
So what exactly were you selling when you were
I
minister?
was trying to sell sanity in demographic development.
Well, you failed, Joe.
Well, I'm not there anymore, so I can't take responsibility for everything that everybody else does. But thank you for reminding everybody who's watching that I wasn't as perfect as my mother wanted me to be. But look, so you've got 70,800 employees that somebody up there decided was all that Ontario needed. Now, Ontario's economy has grown by more than that number every year for the last 10 years.
That's right.
So who picks these people?
Well, it isn't business. It's not the unions. It's the workers, the legal people. They're chosen by themselves according to a point system and a structure that simply doesn't work. It's a proven failure.
Oh, that's heresy. Now, everybody knows that you can get everything online. You can go on the internet. You can go to the government website, and you can get everything that you want.
Has it succeeded?
And fill it out.
Has it succeeded?
Well, I guess that's a rhetorical question, because if you've got over 1 million undocumented workers in the entire country, it suggests to me anyway, but I'm a small mind, it suggests to me that employers aren't relying on that system, because the marketplace demands things here, today, now, actually yesterday. I need somebody to work for me.
But Joe, again, so we're talking about when you were there, your officials would come to you and say, Minister, the economy in Ontario needs 50,000 economic folks. But you knew that was nonsense. What did you say?
I said, you know how my dad got here? Somebody found a job here, and they said to their employer, you know what? Luciano back home needs a job. Can I bring him in here? And the guy said, can you speak for him? Yeah. That's called a reference letter. And
It's called...
15 days later, he'd get off a boat and he'd be here.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We were talking, the headline here was the economics of immigration.
Sure.
And so here's the argument that I always faced, and I think others still face. You hear it all the time. You brought up the business of the Fraser Institute reports. It's an organization that for me has very little value, but
They have no competition.
But But they come up with statistics, they come up with data, and one of the data and statistics they come up with is, we have to curb immigration. You know why? Because they're not doing as well as the immigrants from the generation before. And, that would strike me as odd. So whether you people know it or not, if you're in the general Toronto GTHA, you may remember that one generation ago, that's 15, 20 years ago, etc., the place wasn't as big as it is today. And 20 years before that, it wasn't even that big. And so my response to the Fraser Institute and to my officials was, look, I don't know how much these people are earning. All I know is I can't afford their house.
Yeah.
I can't afford their house. And guess what? They're working in an environment where they earn a lot less than me. So it means that they have a life value structure that's different from the consumer one that that underscores the Fraser Institute analyses, etc. So because you live in the Greater Toronto area, this place has just boomed.
Yep.
It's just boomed, and all those houses are filled. They're filled with people
But
who
we're
work hard.
talking about the economics of immigration.
Well, that's you can't get better than that.
But I go back to my dear friends, the immigration planners in Ottawa. When they think about the economics of immigration, do they consider that 10% up to 10% of the GTA workforce is undocumented? Do they statistically they ignore it? I'll tell you as a fact that the guys who are planning our economies, like Soviets in Russia, that's what they are essentially.
You mean the left shoe this week and the right shoe next week?
These economic whatever they're communists, Joe. It's a control command economy up there. They want the economy of Ontario, they want the economy of the GTA to fit their model. That's command control. For them, and when they don't even acknowledge, they won't even acknowledge that 10% of our workforce here, if not more, in the GTA is undocumented. So that means, but on their statistics in Ottawa, those show as Canadian legal workers.
Well, they're not.
So
they
by
don't
what
have the
magic?
status.
By what magic? The Wizard of Oz. It's the Wizard of Oz economy up in Ottawa.
Well, they must be consulting with the government of Ontario, because the government of Ontario, I think, what did we say? There are 8 pieces of legislation that govern the workplace.
That's right.
And so if you're working on a particular site, it doesn't matter whether you're documented or not, whether you have status or not, whether you're landed or you're a citizen, none of that matters. As far as the government of Ontario is concerned, you have to abide by those 8 pieces of legislation.
What Ralph Goodale does, cynically, he says, oh yes, the government of Ontario says that under Ontario law, these are not illegal workers, therefore I cannot arrest them, I cannot touch them, but I won't take their taxes, so they're legal. So Ralph says they're legal in Ontario, therefore I'm not going to arrest half the job site guys up there in Vaughan. But what happens? But when he gets one who's paid taxes, who's a proven worker, whose employer needs him, who's economically exactly what we need in this country, what does he do? He got one. He's going to deport him. Why? Just to pretend there's integrity in his system.
So we talked about, we didn't talk about it very much in this program, but the Corriere covered it.
Sure.
Bruno and Ariana.
There you go.
You have family of 4.
I read it today.
They're working, and he wants them out. And Ahmed Hussein wants them out.
But
today,
you already bothered me with your piece today in the paper. Is
you
that
mean the Dimitri family?
The Dimitri family, where they were forced to apply for refugee, for humanitarian. Here's a family, economically viable. In the old days, when we didn't have any immigration lawyers, we had no consultants, we did not have an immigration industry, we did not have immigration economists crawling all over Ottawa, Dimitri would have gone to an employer, gotten a letter, gotten a police certificate, he'd be working.
You're going to take me a little bit off topic, because Dimitri did do that. He went and got a job, and whoever it was that arbitrated his application, the LMIA, etc., said, well, no, you don't have the qualifications of an electrician. This guy's a computer expert. He's an undercover agent. Hold on. He knows everything about software and hardware and everything, but he's not an electrician, so he couldn't accept the job. Are you ready for this? I'm going to talk about this later on. He couldn't accept a job as a day laborer on a construction site where he is actually doing the work that he might do with his
Joe.
eyes closed. No, hold on.
Who made that decision? The boss?
Well, no, they're obviously the official who is in,
Who is
he's either in Goodale's office or department, or in Hussein's department. I mean, I just found that flyer. That's why we wrote about it. So there's chaos here. There's chaos in Italy. 450 people are coming off a boat.
That's an invasion from the outside. We have an invasion from Ottawa.
So my issue with the Dimitri family, and the reason why we highlighted
Sure.
it, is because of the economics of
That's
immigration.
right.
You asked me, is who picks these people?
Yeah.
And so he self-selected. He came here. He did all of the right things. But, we've been talking about the rights of children and the decision by the Supreme Court that their best interests always have to be kept in mind. I'm going to show you that particular decision. 17 pages. 17
So let me
pages.
get this straight.
Hold on. 17 pages. The arbitrator turns around and says, oh, I'm looking at that. Yeah, I don't have to take a look at the children's best interests because they seem to be well adjusted. They can go anywhere as long as it's not here. 17 pages of nonsense.
We're paying for this.
Well, I mean,
And Ralph Goodale, and I read in today's piece that Ralph said, "Oh, this is Ahmed's problem," and Ahmed said, "No, this is Ralph's problem."
yeah, and if I were to give that family advice to just ignore the both of them, Ralph Goodale's shop could, by law, come and say to me, you have counseled them to break the law. We're going to charge you, and you're liable for $2,000, 2 years in jail, and $50,000 fine. But this is.
If Ralph did that, he would have to lock up what percentage of the population in the GTHA?
Well, so I'm not going to counsel the
Between
family.
employers and teachers and families and lawyers, half the city would be behind bars.
So this is why we use the title Chaos. So we're looking forward. By the way, I think we said to you the other day that we were going to invite Ahmed Hussein to come to us and speak. So we actually sent him an invitation in writing.
Good.
I haven't got an answer
His
yet.
writing is right around other side of Caledonia, isn't it?
So maybe instead of writing it, I should shout it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Look, we said we were going to stick just to the economics, but you can see that as soon as you get to this topic, it is the hot topic of the day, here as elsewhere. In Europe, Europe is on the brink of collapsing internally. It's imploding.
But they acknowledge it, and they're arguing, fighting about it. What really ticks me off with Ontario and Toronto and Canada is that we pretend that
none
the
of this
system
happens.
is working. We pretend that 10% of our workforce doesn't exist. We pretend we don't have 100,000 kids in schools. If Ralph kicks them out, it's 5,000 teachers, classrooms shut down. We're pretending it's the Canadian way. It doesn't exist. It never happened.
And you have a much more ambition for the Canadian future than I guess some of these others that take this approach. Look, Richard, as always, we get started on a particular topic and we don't get a chance to finish it because, as I said, Europe is on the brink of implosion because of an immigration issue. The United States, as I said at the start, if it weren't for immigration, it would only be about impeaching Trump. And here in Canada, we're not talking about it until last week when, of course, we had a heckler heckle the Prime Minister, and this week when Maxime Bernier decided that he's had enough.
Bernier was nowhere in immigration all those years. He's the guy who's always talking about economic common sense. I've been following him for years. I wanted to support the man, but this guy had no strategy, no plan, nothing on the economics of immigration. A man who is big on controlling eggs and chickens and milk and managing eggs and milk, but nothing on managing human beings and the productivity of human beings.
So we don't want to manage them, we just want to take advantage of their productivity, and that's the reason why Canada has an immigration policy. And for all those who are watching, the immigration policy should be checked and tested against what it can produce, what it can do for Canadians, and what it can do for our society, demographically and economically speaking. We're going to pursue this once again. if Richard Borax will let me get a word in edgewise at the next
if
one.
he's not locked up in the meantime.
Okay. And so, Joe Volpe on behalf of Corriere Canadese, Go Live TV, Corcan Media Group, and Richard
Sir.
Borax saying thank you for watching. Follow us on YouTube, on Facebook, on social media, and of course you can go on to our own site. Thank you very much.